Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, we're exploring the work of Brian David Phillips.
Okay.
He's an associate professor at National Chengchi University
hmm
in Taipei, Taiwan.
Wow.
And he's fascinated by how AI is changing the way we learn,
Interesting.
especially when it comes to English as a foreign language and literature.
Okay.
But get this. He's using Neal Stephenson's The Diamond Age
Oh, wow.
as a lens to examine this topic.
That's really unique, isn't it?
Right.
Like using this futuristic novel
Yeah.
to try to understand something as real and present as AI in education.
Yeah, and Phillips is looking at how this fictional world,
Yeah.
where these AI tutors are just totally commonplace,
Right.
can help us understand the challenges and opportunities we're
Mm.
facing today.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So for those of you who haven't read The Diamond Age,
Uh-huh.
don't worry, we'll break down the key elements. The story is about this object called a Young Lady's Illustrated Primer.
Okay.
And it's basically an AI-powered book that acts as like a personal tutor.
Oh, okay.
It adapts to the learner's progress, sort of like a super advanced version of
Yeah.
those language learning apps that we all use today.
Right, right.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
This primer in the novel doesn't just teach like vocabulary or grammar.
Uh-huh.
It goes a step further.
Oh, wow.
It shapes the protagonist's entire worldview,
Whoa.
her morals, her values.
Uh-huh.
Like imagine having a technology
Yeah.
that could not only teach you facts, but also guide your ethical compass.
Oh, that's both fascinating and a little bit scary.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder
Yeah.
who decides what values an AI tutor should promote
Right.
and what happens if this technology ends up in the wrong hands.
These are some of the big questions Phillips grapples with.
Yeah.
And it's something we should all be thinking about
Yeah.
as AI just becomes more and more integrated into education. The Diamond Age offers kind of a cautionary tale
Yeah.
about the potential for AI to be used for control and manipulation,
Right.
even in the realm of learning.
Yeah, it's like almost a warning for us today.
Right. The novel paints this picture
Uh-huh.
of a society divided by access to technology,
Okay.
where the wealthy elite use AI tools,
Right.
like the primer,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of maintain their power and cultural dominance.
Huh.
It's almost like a futuristic version
Yeah.
of the digital divide we see today,
Right.
where those with access to the best technology just have this huge advantage.
Exactly.
Phillips argues that we need to be mindful of this potential for AI
Yeah.
to exacerbate inequality,
Right.
especially in education.
It's a valid concern.
He sees a real risk that AI could further advantage those who are already privileged while leaving others behind.
Yeah. No one wants that.
So how do we prevent that from happening?
That's the big question.
How do we ensure that AI in education becomes a force for equity and empowerment
Right.
rather than division and control?
Well, Phillips points to Taiwan as a potential model.
Oh, right.
He's based there, and
Right.
he sees a lot of promising developments
Okay.
in how they're approaching AI in education.
Interesting.
Taiwan has this strong commitment to
Mm.
both technological innovation and digital inclusion.
Okay.
They're actively working to make sure that everyone has access to technology and the
Mhm.
skills to use it effectively.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to write a different ending to the Diamond Age,
Yeah.
one where technology actually helps to bridge the gap
Right.
between the haves and have-nots.
That's a great way to put it.
So we've talked about the potential for AI to divide us,
Uh-huh.
but the Diamond Age also explores its power to preserve and transmit culture. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
The primer in the novel isn't just a teacher, it's like a cultural ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
It's programmed with very specific neo-Victorian ideals, and it subtly instills those values in its user.
So that raises some interesting questions.
Yeah.
On the one hand, AI could be this incredible tool for documenting and even reviving
Right.
endangered languages and cultural traditions.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
Uh-huh.
it could also be used to promote a single dominant narrative,
Yeah.
potentially leading to cultural homogenization.
Precisely.
Phillips highlights this duality.
Mhm.
He thinks that AI can be a powerful force for cultural preservation,
Yeah.
but we have to be aware of how it could be used to limit diversity and stifle creativity.
It's a double-edged sword.
So how do we strike that balance? How do we use AI to celebrate and promote cultural diversity
That's the challenge, isn't it?
rather than erase it.
I think it starts with recognizing that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. It's
Right.
up to us to decide how we want to use it.
And speaking of using AI for good,
Yeah.
let's talk about the potential for AI to enhance human relationships. In the Diamond Age, the protagonist develops this really unique relationship with the primer.
Interesting.
It becomes more than just a tool for her. It's like a companion, a confidant.
Yeah, it's a fascinating aspect of the novel.
Yeah.
And it makes us think about how AI is already shaping our relationships
Mhm.
in the real world.
Mhm.
Just think about social media algorithms, dating apps,
Yeah,
even those customer service chatbots.
right.
They're all powered by AI,
Yeah,
and they're influencing how we interact with each other.
right.
And as AI becomes more sophisticated, it's likely to play an even bigger role in our social lives.
Right. But there's a potential downside to this,
Oh,
right?
yeah, of course.
What happens when AI starts making decisions for us
Mm-hmm.
rather than with us?
That's a question that Phillips is very concerned about.
Okay.
He argues that we need to be mindful of how AI can subtly influence our choices,
Mm-hmm.
even in the realm of personal relationships.
Okay.
We need to make sure that we're not surrendering our autonomy or becoming overly reliant on algorithms
Yeah.
to tell us who to connect with or how to live our lives.
So it's not just about robots taking over the world.
Right.
It's about these subtle ways AI can shape our perceptions, our values,
Mm.
and even our relationships
Yeah,
without us even realizing it.
exactly.
And that's why it's so important to be having these conversations now.
I agree.
We need to be thinking critically
Mm-hmm.
about the role we want AI to play in
Mm.
our lives and in society as a whole.
The Diamond Age provides a really valuable framework
Yeah.
for thinking through these issues.
Now, before we move on, you mentioned that Brian David Phillips is an associate professor
Mm.
teaching undergraduate and graduate courses in the English department
Uh-huh.
at National Chengchi University
Mm-hmm.
in Taipei, Taiwan.
Yes, that's right.
He's also involved in research on AI in education,
Yes,
specifically teaching and learning English as a foreign language and literature. That gives him such a unique perspective on this topic, doesn't it?
absolutely. He's not just a theorist.
Yeah.
He's also deeply engaged in the practical applications of AI in education.
Right.
And his location in Taiwan gives him this front row seat to how these technologies are being developed and implemented
Yeah.
in a culture that's both technologically advanced and deeply rooted in tradition.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a really interesting combination.
It's like he's bridging these two worlds, the
Mhm.
world of literature and imagination
Right.
and the world of cutting-edge technology.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what makes his work so compelling. He's
Mhm.
able to see the big picture
Hmm.
and to connect the dots between these seemingly disparate fields
Yeah.
and offer some really insightful observations
Mhm.
about the future of AI and
Hmm.
its impact on education and culture.
I can't wait to dig deeper into his ideas.
Me too.
This is going to be a fascinating discussion.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more.
Sounds good. So, one of the things that makes Phillips' work so fascinating is that he's not just looking at the technical parts of AI,
Okay.
he's also really interested in its philosophical implications.
Interesting.
The Diamond Age isn't just like a sci-fi adventure.
Right.
It's a novel that really digs into those big questions about the nature of consciousness, free will,
Yeah.
and what it means to be human
Yeah.
in a world that's being shaped by technology.
Well, I love when science fiction gets philosophical. It's like
Yeah.
it forces you to face those big existential questions
Right.
that we often just try to avoid.
Yeah, totally.
What are some of the questions that Stephenson raises?
Okay. Well,
And how does Phillips connect those to the real world?
so one of the big themes is the question of AI sentience.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
is AI actually conscious?
Right.
The primer in the novel,
Yeah.
while super advanced,
Uh-huh.
isn't explicitly conscious in the way that humans are,
Okay.
but its ability to learn and adapt and even form a bond with the protagonist
Yeah.
kind of blurs the lines between machine and human.
It really does.
It makes you wonder,
Yeah.
at what point does an AI become more than just a program?
Right.
At what point might we consider it to have some level of consciousness?
That's a question that's been debated by philosophers and scientists for ages.
I know.
And it's even more relevant now as AI technology keeps advancing.
Totally.
Does Phillips offer any answers?
Well, he doesn't claim to have all the answers,
Yeah.
but he does raise some really thought-provoking points.
Like what?
He argues that we need to be careful about just assuming that AI has human qualities.
Right.
Just because an AI can mimic human behavior doesn't necessarily mean it's experiencing consciousness in the same way that we do.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the science fiction and start to think of these AI systems as if they were human.
Like they have feelings and thoughts like we do.
But it's important to remember that they're still machines operating based on algorithms and code.
Exactly.
So even if AI never achieves human-like consciousness, Phillips argues that it still raises important questions about what it means to be human. As AI gets more sophisticated, we might need to reevaluate our own sense of uniqueness and what sets us apart from machines.
It's like AI is holding a mirror up to us.
Right.
Forcing us to think about what it means to be alive, to think, to feel.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
So Phillips finds the Diamond Age really relevant to our current moment.
Okay.
The novel isn't just about predicting the future.
Right.
It's about making us think about who we are and what kind of future we want to create.
Now, another theme in the novel is the question of free will.
Right.
If the protagonist's choices are being influenced by this AI tutor, does she actually have free will?
That's a big question.
And it's relevant to our lives even today.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about all the ways that algorithms already shape our choices.
Okay.
From what we buy to the news we read to the people we connect with online.
Right.
Are we truly free when we make those choices?
Right.
Or are we being nudged in certain directions by forces we can't control?
It's a bit unsettling to think about.
It is.
We want to believe we're in control of our own lives.
Yeah.
But it seems like AI is playing a bigger and bigger role.
It does.
In shaping our paths.
Phillips would say this is something we need to be paying attention to.
Okay.
He's not saying that we should reject AI.
Right.
But he is saying that we should be mindful of how it influences our thoughts, our behaviors, and even our sense of self.
So it's not just about the dramatic scenarios of AI taking over the world.
Right.
It's about those smaller, more subtle ways
that
AI is already affecting our lives.
And that's why these conversations are so important.
Yeah.
We need to be thinking critically about the role we want AI to play.
In our lives and in society.
Right, so we've talked about the philosophical side of AI.
Yeah.
But let's bring it back to the practical aspects of education.
Okay.
One thing that struck me about the Diamond Age is how it shows a future where learning is incredibly personalized and interactive.
Right.
The Premer adapts to the protagonist, anticipates her questions, and even creates scenarios to challenge her.
Right.
It's like having a super tutor available 24/7.
It's a really cool vision
It is.
of what education could be like in an AI-powered world.
Does Phillips think we're getting closer to that?
He thinks we're seeing glimpses of it already.
Well, really?
Where?
Well, think about those language learning apps we talked about.
Okay.
Like Duolingo.
Right.
They use AI to adapt the lessons to your pace and style.
Uh-huh.
You know how Duolingo seems to know when to give you a harder question?
Yeah.
Or when to review something you've learned before?
Yeah.
That's AI tailoring the experience just for you.
I've used Duolingo.
Yeah.
It is pretty cool how it personalizes the lessons.
It is.
But is that all there is to AI in education?
Well, Phillips thinks it goes much deeper.
Okay.
He sees AI having the potential to revolutionize the way we learn.
How so?
Imagine every student having a personalized learning plan that adapts to their strengths, weaknesses, and interests.
Wow.
Imagine AI tutors that can give real-time feedback and guidance, helping students learn difficult concepts and develop critical thinking skills.
That sounds amazing.
Right.
But it also makes me think about teachers.
Yeah, what about them?
Will they be replaced by robots?
That's a common question.
Yeah.
And Phillips says no, teachers won't disappear.
Oh.
Instead of giving information, teachers will be more like facilitators, mentors, and guides.
So they'll be more like coaches, working with students one-on-one or in small groups.
Exactly.
To help them reach their goals.
I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it is.
It lets both AI and human teachers do what they do best.
Right.
AI can handle the basic stuff, and teachers can focus on those higher-level skills.
Like creativity and critical thinking.
Exactly.
Those are really important for success in life.
Phillips thinks this partnership between AI and human teachers can make learning more equitable and effective for all students.
But there are challenges, right?
Yeah, of course.
One thing that worries me is the idea of AI deciding what students learn.
Yeah.
What if the AI is biased?
That's a really valid concern.
Or designed to push a certain agenda?
Phillips emphasizes that we have to be very careful about the data that's used to train AI for education.
Okay.
We need to make sure the data is diverse and representative, and that the algorithms are fair.
Right. So it's not just about the tech itself.
Right.
It's about using it ethically and responsibly.
Exactly.
That requires a lot of discussion and critical thinking.
It does.
We need to keep asking ourselves, who's making these algorithms?
Yeah.
What are their goals? And how can we make sure they're serving all students?
Those are the big questions.
There are big questions.
Yeah, and there's a lot at stake.
There is.
But I also think there's a lot to be optimistic about.
Yeah.
AI has the potential to really change education in positive ways.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to use it for good.
It feels like we're at a crossroads.
It does.
And the decisions we make now will affect education for generations to come.
That's why these discussions are so important.
Right.
We need to be exploring these ideas and thinking critically about the role of AI.
Okay, before we get to our last segment, where we'll be answering listener questions, I'll touch on one more thing from the Diamond Age that Phillips talks about. The novel explores the idea that AI can influence not just people, but whole cultures.
That's right.
The primer isn't just for learning. It also passes on cultural values and norms. This brings up some really interesting questions.
Yeah, for sure.
About how AI could shape the way societies evolve.
That's a big thought.
It is. We usually think about AI changing our jobs or our shopping.
Right.
But what if it starts to change our cultures?
Phillips wants us to think about that.
Okay.
He argues that we can't just focus on the technical side of AI. We also need to consider its cultural and political implications.
That makes sense.
We need to ask ourselves, what values do we want AI to have?
Okay.
How can we make sure those values reflect the diversity of human societies?
Those are some really deep questions.
They are.
And it makes me realize that the conversation about AI goes way beyond just technology.
It does.
It's about ethics, it's about culture, and it's about the future we're building.
For ourselves and for future generations.
Exactly. Phillips is reminding us that AI isn't neutral.
Right.
It reflects our values and hopes.
And it's up to us to make sure it benefits all of humanity.
All right, with that in mind, let's move on to our final segment.
Okay.
Where we'll be taking some listener questions.
That's good.
And exploring the bigger picture of how the Diamond Age helps us understand the relationship between tech and society. Okay, so let's dive into some of those listener questions.
Yeah, sounds good.
We always get such thoughtful ones from our deep diving community.
It's true. They really make you think.
Okay, first up, we have a question from Maria.
Okay.
She asks, in the Diamond Age, the primer ends up playing a role in, broader societal change.
Yeah.
Do you think AI could really have that kind of influence in the real world? Could it shape not just individuals, but the evolution of whole cultures?
That's a great question, Maria.
It is.
It gets to the core of what Phillips is trying to get us to think about.
Yeah.
It says we can't just think of AI as like a personal tool.
Right.
It can impact how societies work, how cultures change.
Yeah. Even how power dynamics play out. It's like throwing a stone into a pond.
Okay.
The initial impact is small, but the waves spread out and change the whole surface of the water.
Exactly. We're already seeing how social media algorithms are affecting political discourse and social movements. So it's not hard to imagine how AI could have even bigger effects on cultural trends and beliefs and values.
It's both exciting and a little scary, isn't it?
Definitely.
The potential for AI to shape whole cultures.
Yeah.
It's a huge responsibility.
Phillips really stresses that we need to think carefully about how we design and use these technologies.
Right.
It's not just about the code. It's about understanding the impact our choices will have on society and culture.
Our next question comes from David.
All right.
He asks, if we could design an AI like the primer to guide our learning, what are some potential unintended consequences we should watch out for?
That's a great question, David.
It is.
It reminds us that we need to be really thoughtful.
Yeah.
One possible consequence could be the creation of echo chambers or filter bubbles.
Oh, I've heard of those.
If an AI only gives us information that agrees with what we already believe, it could limit our exposure to new ideas and prevent us from thinking critically.
It's like those personalized news feeds that only show you articles you're already likely to agree with.
Exactly.
You miss out on the whole picture.
And that can be a problem,
Yeah.
especially when we're trying to understand complex issues.
So how do we prevent that? How can we ensure that AI is promoting open-mindedness and curiosity instead of reinforcing our biases?
I think transparency is crucial.
Okay.
We need to know how these algorithms work.
Yeah.
What data they use and how they make decisions.
Okay.
And we need to include diverse perspectives in the design and development of these systems.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To make sure they're not perpetuating stereotypes or excluding certain groups.
The more diverse the input, the less likely we are to create an AI with blind spots or unintentional biases.
It's about building these systems for everyone, not just a few.
Okay, we have time for one last question.
All right.
This one is from Sarah.
Okay.
She asks, the Diamond Age shows a future where technology both empowers and controls people.
Right.
How can we make sure AI enhances our freedom rather than limiting it?
That's something a lot of people are thinking about, Sarah, and I think it comes down to awareness.
Okay.
We need to be aware of how AI can influence our choices. We need to think critically and question the recommendations we get and not just blindly follow what algorithms tell us to do.
It's about being thoughtful about the information we take and the choices we make and the relationships we build.
Exactly.
We need to be active participants in our own lives, even in a world that's increasingly shaped by AI.
Right.
It's about remembering that we have the power to choose how we use technology and making sure it serves us.
Not the other way around.
Wow, this has been a really incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much ground today.
I know.
From the potential of AI in education to the philosophical questions of a world where machines can learn and adapt.
It's been great exploring these ideas with you.
And with our listeners.
Absolutely. I always appreciate their insights.
A big thank you to Brian David Phillips.
Yes.
For his thought-provoking work.
His perspective is really unique.
It is.
As a literature scholar and AI researcher working in Taiwan, it gives us a lot to think about.
For our listeners who want to learn more, we'll have links to Brian David Phillips' work in the show notes.
Okay.
Along with some other resources on AI and education.
Sounds good.
And please keep those questions and comments coming.
Yes, please do.
We love hearing from you.
We do.
And having these important conversations.
It's what makes this so rewarding.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Keep exploring, keep questioning.
Keep learning.
And keep shaping the future you want to see.
That's what it's all about.
Breathe deep, close your eyes, and surrender to the cards. Let the rhythm of the symbols take you far. In the dance of the arcana, see your story start to bloom. Every flip, every turn, it's like magic in the room. Tarot trance, feel the vibe, let your spirit